Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take another look at the Grand Water Trine. I made a list of 10 things to watch for. We took a look at 5 of them yesterday. We're going to take a look at the second 5 today. All of these are designed to give you some deeper ways of reflecting upon so much astrological water as a symbol in the sky between now and early December. I will review the timeline and the specifics of the Grand Water Trine before getting into it today. There is no need for you to watch part 1 prior to watching this, although if you wanted the full list, you could watch yesterday and today together, but they're in no particular order. All just things that I think will be useful for us reflecting on the meaning of so much water in the sky. So anyway, that's our agenda for today. Remember to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections if you've got them. We really appreciate hearing from you, and also hype us if you do that kind of thing. Turn on the notification bell for updates. Transcripts of any of these daily talks can be found on my website, nightlightastrology.com. Tonight, I'm giving a talk on the second house, the money house, learning about the roots of this house philosophically, and learning how to read it a little bit more sensitively, understanding money in your birth chart. Really good topic. A lot of people come to astrologers to discuss this. You can find the registration there on the live talks page. If you can't make it, of course, you get the recording later. Go to events, click on Silent Sundays. We are now starting our monthly community meditation gathering on Sundays. First meeting is October 26th at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. Just getting together for 30 minutes of quiet time. No doctrines, no dogma, just the value of silence. I'm trying to build more meaningful bridges for people between astrological practice and spiritual self-care. It means a lot to me to see people getting the most that they can out of astrology as a spiritual practice. I think pairing it with some time in silence is an absolutely great thing to do. So that's why we're doing it. Go to courses, click on first year course. Main thing I'm advertising today is we are in enrollment for the next year 1 program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is really probably one of the best things I've created in my whole life, maybe apart from my kids. This course is a course that is designed to give you a transformative spiritual experience learning ancient astrology. You'll find an informational video about it tagged onto the end of today's content at the bottom. The early bird rates, they're available until October 24th. So you have just a little bit of time left to use that early bird rate. Need-based tuition is also there. So if you're someone who needs a little help to make the class happen, really all we care about is that people have a sincere desire to study astrology. And then you're qualified from our perspective to take advantage of that need-based tuition assistance if it makes sense for you. If you're on a limited or fixed income, you're on disability, or a single parent, your exchange rates are high in another country, whatever the case might be, we just want people coming to class who love astrology. And so if that's you and you could use a little help to make it happen, please do take advantage of that. It's part of our vision at Nightlight to make astrology accessible for all living beings. So anyway, on that note, let's go ahead and review. Oh, wait, no, here we go. Nope, we are ready. So here's what I'm doing. Let's put this up on the screen. Okay, Grand Water Trine. All right. Whoops, I am way off. Sorry, I was looking at the November occurrence. And here we go. So that Grand Water Trine is forming today from the moon in Scorpio. We started looking at this yesterday. You'll see that Mercury and Mars in late Scorpio are starting to form a trine with Jupiter, and then they'll be forming the trine with Saturn. It's not an exact Grand Water Trine, but it is close enough. The astrology is just, it's raining, it's pouring. So we want to look at water and get a feeling for how to read and understand the element of water as a primary symbol through which we're experiencing things right now. The other thing to keep in mind is that this Grand Water Trine will continue to take place if we see Mercury coming through the trine to Jupiter by tomorrow, Friday, and then hitting Saturn by Sunday. And then Mars will go through next week, the Grand Water Trine. So the end of October is just super, super watery. You've got a new moon forming in Scorpio that will also be activating everything. So then this reiterates mid-November and then early December. So all in all, we have multiple occurrences of the Grand Water Trine between right now and early December, and you probably won't even really notice the separations between the most intense periods. You're just going to notice the overall watery effect, but there will be these peak moments that we'll continue to unpack and come back to as each one rolls through, this one being the first one. So what I did was I came up with a list of 10 things to watch for, and I've broken them into 2 sections. Yesterday, we went through the first 5. They're in no particular order. So again, if you missed it, go back and watch. It's not like you have to have seen that to see this. What I want to do today is keep exploring another 5 things to watch for with respect to water and how to think about water from the ancient philosophical and religious perspectives of so many different traditions that are all applicable for this Grand Water Trine. All right, so number 1, very, very simple. In Buddhism, water is one of the primary images associated with impermanence. Impermanence is sort of like a core doctrine of Buddhist teaching. Everything is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is ever remaining the same. And in a way, trying to describe some kind of underlying essence or sameness or stability is like trying to hold water in your hands. It just falls right through. It's not that water is nothing, but it's not something that you can point to as solid and lasting and enduring. It moves and it's fluid. And so while there is something called life, its core feature is that it can't like hold on to it. It's always moving. So one of the things that water can bring up for us is this core philosophical reminder that's really at the heart of all mystical traditions. I can't think of one mystical tradition I've studied, from Taoism to yoga philosophy to Buddhism to ancient Western forms of esotericism, that doesn't have in common the idea that the only constant is change. When we are in touch with this through meditation, let's say quiet time, regularly, what's the benefit? Well, there are many, but one of the benefits is that one of the ways that we constantly try to create happiness for ourselves is to hold on to things, to control things. And we, to the degree that we live with the illusion of certainty or control, or even the degree to which we can be attached to something, is often the degree to which we temporarily experience the illusion of happiness. But then what happens? And this is where the mystical life begins. Impermanence, death, change, suffering, letting go, having to surrender, feeling overwhelmed. These things happen. You lose control. You can't maintain an attachment. You can't maintain the same level of certainty. Your thoughts, feelings, and control are overwhelmed. When that happens, we come back into a primordial awareness of something very, very simple, something as basic as water, yet as incapable of grasping or holding on to as water. This is one of the primary spiritual and sort of philosophical benefits of Grand Water Trines. Whatever happens, however it happens, wherever it shows up, you can think that it may involve impermanence and change and flux. And when we are reminded of that, we often come back to the most basic, simple truths, one of which, by the way, is love. Love is free, love is flowing, love is fluid. The way we connect to life, ourselves, other beings, without attachment, but not without care or connection, that fluid way of staying connected, concerned, but also unproblematically attached. That's how many people have talked about love. Grand Water Trine offers us an opportunity to remember, oh yeah, change is everywhere. Change is constant. Number 2, water is often talked about in modern psychological astrology as intuitive. Now, there's some debate about intuition and instinct around water and fire in astrology, and that's all really interesting. But let's just talk whether it's instinct or intuition. I want you to think for a moment about like a dog. We have 2 mastiffs, which have guardian tendencies in them, right? They're like a guardian breed. So when they hear something coming in the driveway, my English mastiff, she'll sit up and she'll start like, like I'm concerned. My Cane Corso, he's still a puppy, and so he'll start growling when she does, but otherwise, he's sort of a tool. He doesn't know anything. He has no skills yet. But he'll start growling when she does, and then she goes and she checks it out. That when we see a dog doing that, and we haven't even heard the person yet, their senses are different, that they have different hearing than we do. But intuition is a little bit like that, almost like as like an analogy, where if we drop into our bodies, if we listen, if something pops out, something doesn't quite feel right, and you sink into it a little bit and you listen, there's a lot of wisdom that can start coming to the surface. I don't necessarily think that means you're psychic or you're a medium or anything. It doesn't have to be anything, glamorous, and it doesn't have to be anything that puffs up our egos, right? It's just we all have intuitive, instinctual awareness. Like the body is wise, the body knows things, our psyches know things. If you sit and listen, if you take the time to listen during a Grand Water Trine, you may find that there's a lot of knowing there, there's a lot of intuition, that there's a receptivity and an awareness that extends farther than you might think, in the same way your dog can hear someone coming down the driveway. So think of this as a window of heightened intuition. Now, it was in ancient Greek philosophy, Heraclitus, who I love to quote, believed that water was both chaotic and orderly. The reason for this is that Heraclitus believed that because everything was in constant flux, there it is again, that water represents constant change and therefore is sort of an enemy of structure. Solutio in alchemy is very similar, where structures often dissolve during an alchemical water stage. However, and that's also, by the way, very common in psychedelic experiences or states of great grief or loss, where everything, all the structures just kind of fall away and there's a lot of overwhelm. In this sense, water, Heraclitus said, could be very chaotic. However, chaos and structure for Heraclitus were complementary aspects of the same cosmic rhythm. So the flood that comes in and washes over everything, like the tides, pulls away again and then reveals a new form on the beach. The beach is constantly changing, but its forms aren't non-existent. They're there, but they're just always changing because of the tide coming in and out. So think of a Grand Water Trine as something sweeping through life, bringing in the water that washes away the structure, but then as it recedes, a new one emerges. It's a different way of thinking about the solutio that Heraclitus had. Very similar, though. I don't know if Jung was influenced or if the alchemists were influenced by Heraclitus's thinking or not. It wouldn't be surprising. And I'm sure Heraclitus probably wasn't the first person to observe this either, as it's just like, these things are just sort of like symbolic facts of nature. Anyway, number 4, water is considered fertile and life-giving and is associated with all goddesses of fertility in like all across the planet. And so one basic way of thinking about a Grand Water Trine, super fertile. Shit grows. Where there's water, there's life growing, gestating. So it's a very creative thing to see a Grand Water Trine coming through. And one very basic way of thinking about it is just, wow, this is a super fertile force that's expressing itself. So keep that in mind. And then number 5 is water is memory. We talked about water yesterday as being a reflective medium that can connect us to origins, roots, ancestors. We can reflect on emotions and see something of a higher understanding if we reflect upon them. You can see the sky reflected in the water. The air and the water are connected. You can understand emotions if you take a little bit of time to reflect on them. Not that you want to overanalyze or rationalize either. But similar and yet different is that because water is reflective, like the moon, it was associated, both water and the moon, with memory. Memory is a kind of replica or a replay of an original. And so because water is reflective, it allows us to do a lot of very meaningful memory work. That's why it's also connected to ancestral work. But just therapeutically speaking, getting clear about something that happened or how I felt about something that happened in the past, this can be a great blessing of water. So memory work, therapeutic memory work, what wisdom do memories hold? What wisdom and what memories are coming to the surface right now that maybe you haven't visited for a while? These would also be very, wouldn't be surprising, I should say, to see memories come up as the water rises. So that's it for today. That's my list. Stick around. I'm going to tell you more about what to expect from our year 1 program, which is coming up. Something that I've been saying lately, I've been saying one thing about the program that I find makes it like, what makes this program worth taking? To me, that is the idea that community is key to learning. For some people, they have to take this in correspondence fashion, or they take it at their own pace, which is totally fine. The program's built for that. But if you are someone who benefits from being with other people, most of the time, year by year, as conferences occur, Nightlight students are gathering together. We have a ton of community. Like once you enter into the Nightlight world of classes, there's just a lot of community that's built in, and a lot of the time carrying astrology alone is hard. So carrying it in community for many people is a way to deepen and make it so much more relevant and powerful in your life. To share it with others in a deeper, more meaningful, consistent way is huge when it comes to taking astrology to the next level. So anyway, on that note, I hope you're having a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer, or just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that, unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves, and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program, where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology. So psychological counseling skills is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general, there's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology but also values grounded, everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you can only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is apply, you fill out the little form, you tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent or you're on disability or you're retired or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates. We get it. So just use the tuition assistance and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.